are we? Daf Tes Omid Aleph, 7 lines up. We were looking into last week about, remember, being Mosif Mechol ala Kodesh, adding from the profane, Mosif Mechol ala Kodesh, and we had various proofs. Rabbi Akiva had one proof, but because the proof he used, it turned out there was another posuk which we'd also used for someone, and that was, if you remember, further up. The view of Rabbi Yishmael was from that posuk to do with the Inui of Yom Kippur. The Isnisem es nafshu seichem. Remember the posuk says, B'tisha b'chodesh bo'erev. And from there we learned that, in fact, there will be a little bit prior to the 9th and prior to the 10th of Tishri, which is Yom Kippur, and slightly afterwards as well. But Rabbi Akiva used a different posuk to learn the principle of Mosifim Mechol ala Kodesh, which means that posuk about Yom Kippur, which talks about the 9th, what's he going to learn from that posuk? It is an interesting posuk, because as we know, the posuk mentions earlier, and mentions a few places in the Torah where it talks about Yom Kippur being on the 10th of Tishri. However, that posuk, I've got it in front of me here, Shabbat Shabbosoin hu lachem v'inisem es nafshu seichem, and the posuk goes on to say, B'tisha lachodesh bo'erev, the 9th of the month in the evening, may erev ad erev tishpasu shabbatchem. What is this B'tisha lachodesh bo'erev? So last week we were studying the view of Rabbi Yishmael, who learns from there that in fact a part of the 9th actually will add to the 10th. Mosifim Mechol ala Kodesh. Rabbi Akiva learns his principle. We learned last week from another posuk, Bechorish of Akot. We won't go into that. That was from last week. Which means, what does he learn from that posuk? Pick this up here, 7 lines up. Rabbi Akiva. Have you got that? Rabbi Akiva, beginning of the line, Mechol ala Kodesh. Rabbi Akiva, this wonderful halacha that we'll see today. Rabbi Akiva, hai ve'inisem es nafshu seichem betisha. He should afflict nafshu seichem betisha. What's that 9th doing there? Says the Gemara, my Ovid lay. What does he do with it? I love it. What does he do with the word, my Ovid lay? Mi boyle, he needs it. He uses this for the view of Lukadutoni Chia Barav Mi Difti. Anybody familiar with Difti? It's very important. It does say Mi Difti. And why does it tell you where he came from? Because there is another Chia Barav. Rav, the great Tana, had a son called Chia Bar Rav. This is not the well-known Chia Bar Rav you find elsewhere, who was like a 2nd generation Amora. This is Chia Bar Rav Midifti, a different Rav, Midifti, actually 3rd generation Amora. So it's important, that's why we do sometimes stress where the Amora came from, or the Tana. This is going to follow the view of Chia Bar Rav Midifti. What did he say? Bated breath. The Toni Chia Bar Rav Midifti. V'inisem es nafshu seichem betisha. You should afflict your souls on the 9th. But everybody knows, it's mentioned, and I say a few places in the Torah, Yom Kippur is on the 10th of Tishri, not the 9th. V'chi betisha misanim. Do we actually fast on the 9th? Hello, Ba'asiri Misani. There's a posuk which tells me the 10th of the month is Yom Kippur. What's the 9th doing? Elo loy malachot, to tell you, Hakol ha'oichel v'shoise b'tishi. Anyone who eats and drinks on the 9th, Mala Olof HaKosov, the posuk considers it, as we turn the Omud, Ki'ilu hisane Tishi Va'asiri, as if he actually fasted 2 days. Fascinating. What's this all about? Let's have a look at Rashi. Anyone who eats and drinks on the ninth. Look at this. Look at this Rashi. And in fact, some people may have the other edition, which is the Oz Vahoda edition of the Shas, which at the bottom mentions other places where this statement comes up in the Rashi and how Rashi explains it there. But let's have a look at our Rashi. Have you got it? The last Rashi of the page. 7 lines up in Rashi. This is what the Pasuk is saying. V'inisem betisha. You should afflict yourselves on the ninth. And as that can't be true because you're afflicting yourselves on the 10th. And the Torah is not demanding someone to fast for 2 days. Look at this. Achilas tisha anikore inui. What the Torah really wants to say is, I want you to eat on the 9th. A mitzvah to eat on the 9th. Why? We'll see in a moment. So there's a mitzvah to eat on the 9th, but it's written as if you're fasting on the 9th. Continue. This is almost like in brackets. Seeing as achilosoi inui, those people may remember, of course, in the old days back in school on Erev Yom Kippur, where you couldn't get the teacher to stop you eating, even if they wanted to. Achilosoi inui chashivi. It's considered eating is equivalent to afflicting yourself. There's a mitzvah to eat. Keep eating. Vokolda mafish, continues the Rashi. Any extra that you're eating or drinking, tfei odif, that's better. Keep eating it. It's not just one small item to eat. Whatever you're eating constantly. Some people have chewing gum all day long, if that's considered food. But otherwise, just nibbling and having something to eat or proper meals. Why? So how do we learn it's got to do with eating? And what's this connection between eating and afflicting? Says Rashi, it says you actually fast at night because the Apostle says Batisha, and then it goes by Erev. Al kocha lo makpita inui b'tisha. The Torah here as well says only at night you're going to be fasting. And that mentions, as I say elsewhere too. So why does it say the 9th and it's linked to the inui, this afflicting yourself as if you're not eating? Although the Torah wants you to eat, it's called an inui. Very interesting. Why? So have a look at those people who have other Rashis at the end. It's called Likute Rashi. Otherwise, I say one here, you can find this in the other Gemaras itself. Right at the end here. So I've got a Rashi here that comes up in Yuma. I'll turn to Yuma now. The Rashi in Yuma says the following. You're doing something to afflict yourself. The Torah is not demanding that you should fast for 2 days. That's not on. But the Torah is telling you to do something to help you afflict yourself on the following day. I've got the Rashi here. Some people may have that in Yuma.
I think this might be the Musaf Rashi.
Yes. Have you?
It's not Likute Rashi. It's called Musaf Rashi on the one you sent out.
Oh, right. Have you got that?
Yes.
Oh, good.
It's sent out. It's at the bottom.
Oh, very good indeed. So mine's also at the base. And you've got a Rashi from Yuma, have you?
Yes.
Good.
Very
good. Very good indeed. Let's read that Rashi together. Those people who've got it. I suppose everybody's got it if it's been sent out. Peter, thank
It's
you.
also at the bottom of the art scrolls. It's at the bottom of the art scrolls as Likutei Rashi.
Yes, yeah, Likutei, some have Likutei Rashi. So if the old Gemara didn't have any of this. This is much a more recent addition. So in other words, they're looking throughout, not just Shas, not just the Gemara, it's looked throughout, whether you're talking about in Tanakh, I say right through Tanakh, any Rashi anywhere that talks about this statement will be placed here. So it's very useful indeed. Now let's have a look at this Rashi in Yuma.
Who compiled it, Norman? Who compiled this?
I think it was, I don't actually know, because at the front it just says there is Likutei Rashi. Whether it's done because with the aid of computers, I think actually it even predates that, because I think somebody earlier, there was a particular person who was very keen on Likutei Rashi. At the front of my Gemara, it tells me about all these things, but it does not tell me who the author of Likutei Rashi. Maybe it was the publisher themselves, having published so much, they could do that. Certainly, if they got with computers, it just says anything similar is taken and placed here, but there's no name mentioned. So it may actually be the publisher who's done that. Particularly if he's publishing, all the works of Tanakh, etc. He would have that all. Wouldn't say at the fingertips, but it clearly could glean all the Rashis throughout Shas on this topic. So probably the publisher, as we say. Have a look here. V'hochi mashma kro. This is what the posuk means. It's wonderful to take Rashis in various places and put them all together. V'inisem. This is what it means. You should afflict yourself on the 9th. No, Yom Kippur is on the 10th. The Torah does not demand a person to fast for 2 days. No. But it says afflict yourself. So you know what that means? Look at this Rashi. Koloima. And remember, when the Rebbe said, whenever it says koloima, it means there's something difficult there. Well, there is something difficult, because the Apostle should have said eat on the 9th. Why does it say afflict yourself in the 9th? You know what it means? Look at this. Koloima haskein atzmocho betisha. Prepare yourself for the inui on the 9th. On the 9th, you're also, the inui is coming on the 10th. That's when you're not eating and drinking. You're doing something to help that affliction of the 9th and the 10th. Look at this. The Torah wants you to fast. The Torah does not want a person to collapse and the medical advice have to break the fast. The Torah doesn't want that. So therefore, continues Rashi there, and all the Torah uses this wording of inui, afflicting yourself.
Mervyn, you're on mute, so you're.
Sorry. So you can hear my bracha then. Okay, fine.
All right, fair enough. We could, yes, okay. We couldn't see our main. Fair enough. So very interesting. Have a look at the next. I've got another Rashi from Brachas, which you may have as well.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Is it not possible that there would be doubt in the old days? There would have been doubt about which day Yom Kippur was.
What do you mean? Because of something Sveka de Yoma? Why you ask? What do you mean? In which way?
In the same way as if for Sukkot, if there were 2 days of Sukkot because you weren't sure which day it was, then the same surely would apply to Yom Kippur.
Absolutely right. That Gemara comes up in Beitzah. We've seen that in a couple of places. The Chachomim, when they said Sveka de Yoma, did not include Yom Kippur. They went according to the majority, which means, and almost always, in fact, the Gemara talks about it, the Elul was Choser, perhaps particularly for that reason, and they told people, no, for when it comes to the mitzvah of Yom Kippur, only 1 day Yom Kippur. There were some places where they did keep 2 separate days, 2 days. I mean, I don't know how a person can fast 2 days, but there were people, if they were capable of doing that because of Sveka de Yoma, but the rabbis actually said, no.
Because Rav had Sibbo. It's something Rav had Sibbo lo yocholamod, boy. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. No, people can't do that. It's impossible. So the Chachomim therefore waived it.
There was a case in the Second World War. Sorry, there was a case in the Second World War, wasn't there, where there was a doubt in I had in Shanghai, Japan, but the Mir Shiva was as to what date Yom Kippur
that was
was.
that's a bit different today. David's point is like we keep
No, I understand that, but
Yeah,
the people who were allowed to, the people who were able to, were advised by that they were allowed to fast for 2 days because it's a topic, wasn't there?
Quite right. The question there was, where is the date line? There they
Yeah,
were in Japan. Do you remember they were in Kobe, which is just off? So the question is, which side of, and there's machlokas, of course. In fact, that's a wonderful, that Gemara does come up here later on in Rosh Hashanah about the date line. The question was, where is the date line? So they were unsure, they really were unsure which day is it? I mean, you've got to have that every week on Shabbos. Which day is Shabbos? The same there. But that's rather different to yours. So you're quite right there. There was a big issue, although there was a psak. We'll have to look at that. A wonderful story in Shanghai where they got a psak that came through from the Brisker Rov and the Chazan. Everybody was busy with his shaila, and they got through this telegram about what day to fast. A wonderful story. But that's because they really were unsure which day of the week it was. David, your question is a Sveika de Yoma where the Chachomim instituted because they're not sure which day, but keeping 2 days midrabanon, and therefore they said no. We're not having people fasting 2 days. However, as I say, there were some people nowadays. I don't know anybody who fasts 2 days, but there were people that actually did fast 2 days. In the Gemara's time, you do find that. But what we're talking about here is...
Can I ask you a question, Norman?
Yes.
We've got kol ha'ochel. How can you afflict yourself by eating? I remember...
But that's very good. That's that Rashi. You're right. You're not. But the Torah wants to give you... What is more difficult? If you talk about, let's say... if you're talking about a schab, what would you say is a difficult mitzvah? Is it more difficult to eat a piece of cake, right? Or eat all day? Or is it more to have a mitzvah, eating, Purim, let's say? Or would you say fasting all day? Fasting is tough. You get to the end of the day, it's tough. It's meant to be tough, not too tough, because what we're saying here is this is equivalent to a mitzvah as if you've been asked to fast another day. You with me? Have a look at the Tosfos on the next page. And this hopefully answers your question, Peter. Ki ilu hisane tushiv asiri, kaloima. Kamo, have you got the Tosfos on the next page? Top of the page?
Yeah.
Kamo shed sivo HaKadosh Baruch Hu lehisanos. It's like Hashem has actually commanded us to fast. V'his'aneh, and a person fasted. Right? So the Gemara is saying that the language used, Peter, in answer to your question, that there's several reasons. Number one, you are preparing for the affliction of the 10th. But the Torah does not say go and eat, because it wants you to, this is a mitzvah considered as if you're fasting on the 9th, where you're not. Of course you're not. And it's a lot easier to eat than it is to fast at the end of the fast. Yeah? Therefore, what we're saying here is it's as if you fasted. But what happens if somebody says, okay, I don't want to eat, I will fast on the 9th. Says the Gemara, continue on. Aval hashta, now that we've got this Gemara, vadai osa lisanos. This day on the 9th, it's forbidden to fast. The Gemara in Psachim, Ma Berei de Ravina, Ma the son of Ravina, Kula Shos Yosef Betanisa. He was the great pious man. He was fasting almost every day. You'd say Muntik and Donnerstag, he was fasting. Leba mi'atzah tova pura male yoma. Besides, there were certain days where for sure he didn't fast. One was Shavuos and Purim, and Male Yom de Kippur on Erev Yom Kippur. So therefore, what we're saying there is, I say, Peter, the point is it's equivalent. It's a great mitzvah. Don't belittle this mitzvah. It's an equivalent of actually fasting on that day. The question, however, is, if you say it's equivalent to fasting, why does the Torah, now we've seen Rashi is very clear. Rashi says that it's enabling you to fast on that day, on the 10th. Let me read to you from that same Gemara Yuma. I've got the Rosh on that Gemara in Yuma, who explains it in the following way. Beautiful. Toni Rab Chia Badi, we had that, remember? Inisim Isnapshu Seichem. You won't find this on the text, I've got it here. Hochi Pirushai. This is the meaning of this eating on the 9th. Vinis Koloima. Hochinu atzmechem betisha. Prepare yourselves on the 9th. Lihischazek, to strengthen yourself. Ba'achilo ushsio, with eating and drinking. Kedei shetuchlo lisanus lamocha, in order that you're capable of fasting the following day. Listen to this. Laharos chiboso shel hakodesh shehamokam baruch hu, showing how beloved Klal Yisrael is to Hashem. Listen. Ka'odam, like an individual, sheyesh lo yeled sha'ashuim, he's got this beloved child. V'goza olav lisanos yom echad, he's commanded to him, he has to fast. But Siva, he commanded him also, lahachiloi ulahashkosa erev yom hatanis. He's commanding him, others ensure that this individual has what to eat and drink. Kedei sheyuchal lispoil, so that he'll be capable of withstanding that fast. Kach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mikol Yemos Hashana Lo Tzivah Yisrael Samis. As far as the Torah is concerned, there is no day of fasting. The Torah does not demand fasting. In fact, some people say quite the contrary. Of course, everything in moderation, but the Torah, there are beautiful fruits around. There's beautiful food around. A person should enjoy it with the correct brachas, of course. Enjoy it. It's a beautiful world, of course, in moderation, as with everything else. But the items here, the fruits, food, enjoy the foods. But one day not. And this is for their good. As a day of kapara, forgiveness, atonement. Part of the atonement process is that a person does feel, yes, feeling low, feeling weak. In that state, hopefully, he can ask for forgiveness. But nevertheless, his hirom le'echov lishtos ervatanis. And then he goes on to say the point that we just raised before, Peter, but the Torah doesn't say eat on the 9th. It's used a language of afflicting yourself. In other words, helping this affliction, but calling it an affliction. Because as we just explained before, it's much more difficult to fast, and therefore the Torah wants to call it a fast. The question is, and perhaps now with this Rashi and this Rosh, maybe we can answer the question. The question was raised to Rab Kiva Eger. I've got it here in the Teshuvos of Rab Kiva Eger. Teshuvah number 16. Somebody writes that their daughter is unwell. Food is mazik law. It's not good for her to eat. For Kama Shavuos, all she's taking is medications. Hashem Yerachim Oleo. Is she mechuyev to fast on Erev? In other words, is it so important, just like we say on Yom Kippur itself, we bend over to backwards to try and help people that they should fast and get through that day. Very important, fasting on Yom Kippur. If we're equating the two, would you say that eating on Erev Yom Kippur is equally important, and therefore a person has to force themselves to eat? Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, Cholila v'cholila lo lechol. No. She should continue on with her medication. Food is not good for her. The doctors have told her she shouldn't be eating, and she should continue like that. He said, and if you think she's not going to listen, I'm telling two shamosim to go and tell her in my name that I'm making a gezerah on her that she must not eat against the doctor's wishes. Al-Masha Regila, anything more, whatever the doctor says, that's what she's got to do. And if the doctor says she shouldn't be eating, only taking her medication, so be it. But then he adds this point. He says, actually, I've got a question, Reb Kiva Eger writes, in short. There's a principle that we know, mitzvahs ashtei shahazman garoma noshim peturos. We've had that various places. A positive mitzvah, which is dependent upon time, unless there's a particular reason for it, the apostle maybe telling you to the contrary, but the general rule is that positive mitzvahs dependent upon time, ladies are exempt. If they want to, they can. Do ladies need to shake a lulav? No. Do they need to hear a shofar? No. Do they need to sit in a sukkah? No. Matzah is different because there's a special posuk for that. So I say shofar, sukkah, other mitzvahs. Sometimes the positive mitzvahs, they are mechuyev, like Chanukah or Purim, but generally not. So he says the following. It may well be that this mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur, which this person's daughter was very keen to perform and eat on Yom Kippur, you say, who said, maybe she's exempt anyway. Because it might be a mitzvah such as Shazman Garama. That's the first way. But he also mentions there could be a second way. It might be the ladies are mechuyev in this mitzvah. Why? But he said no. Kivan Dekra, the posuk mentions it as an inui. And as we explained before, it's meant to be a preparation for the big day, which is Yom Kippur itself. So therefore, as we've just explained, it's as if fasting on the 9th is like fasting on the 10th, and fasting on the 10th does apply to ladies. It may be that she is therefore mechuyev in the tanis of the, of course, as she is mechuyev in the tanis on the 10th, mechuyev l'kayim v'inisem. And he says, v'tzorech ian la'is hapnai. Tzorech ian means I look forward to looking into it when I'll have time. But at the moment, his main rule to her was, don't eat anything extra beyond what the doctors are telling you. Maybe for other people, there might be this mitzvah to try and eat, I wouldn't say as much as you can, but there's a mitzvah to eat more than normal, certainly. But this may not apply to any ladies, but certainly not against the wishes, I say, of the doctor. But an interesting point there. Do you say the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur applies to ladies? Rabbi Kiva Eger has two sides here. Is it a normal positive mitzvah and dependent on time, of course, because we're only talking about the 9th? Or do you say, no, it's linked to the 10th and it's a preparation for the 10th? Ladies are mitzuvim, they're commanded to keep the fast of the 10th, as we know, so maybe they would have that mitzvah as well. But it's a fascinating...
Can I just ask something? I mean, you could say that the fasting is part of the mitzvah of Teshuvah. Teshuvah is not a mitzvah such as one groma, so...
That's what we answer, yeah. What you're saying part of that second side. In other words, I see what you're saying, more, not so much the fast, you're saying the Teshuvah aspect. Yeah,
it's not mitzvah says I'm not mechuyev in that. So the preparation they're also good.
Yeah, that's good, very good. Rabbi Kiva Eger is coming from the fast itself, which ladies are commanded, and he's saying therefore ladies have to prepare just as much as men need to prepare. The Torah would be telling them. You're saying something else. You're saying it's a link to the 10th, and the 10th is the 10th is really a day of kapara, which is applicable for ladies too, and therefore as it's in that same mold, therefore yeah, you could say that too. Very good, very good. So therefore, as we move across,
Norman, by the way, Norman, sorry,
some other question from someone.
Yeah, I
Hello?
just want to clear up Akiva Eger.
Yes,
There was a cholera outbreak in Poznan.
yes,
It's actually been written about quite a lot recently, but there was an cholera outbreak. He forbade large
yes,
gatherings in the shul on Yom Kippur, and no more than it's everything we know today. Social distancing.
absolutely.
He would not allow overcrowding in the areas. He said everybody has to listen to what the doctors had to say. He was commended by the non-Jewish
Yes,
Orthodox.
yes, absolutely. He said you've got to stick to absolutely right, the letter of the law. Yeah. And in fact, they commended him because they say because of him, he was so strict about whatever the rules were to ensure they kept them. They do say that actually helped very much to turn the tide at the time. And I think he was certainly a great accolades from the parties at the time. Say the non-Jewish rulers at the time. Reb Kiva Eger, there's wonderful teshuva about that. Occasions, of course, there's the famous, they were making Kiddush in shul. That's wonderful, on Yom Kippur, which was on a Shabbos.
Yeah. Mm.
And there was a should people be eating, shouldn't people be eating or not? And that wasn't Reb Kiva Eger, but another great personality.
It was the Father Musa, wasn't it? The founder of the Musa movement. I can't remember his name.
Salamta.
Sorry, Salamta did that.
Yeah.
He got up and he made Kiddush at Kol Nidre.
Kiddush in shul. Many of the rabbis disagreed, but he said, sorry, no, and he made Kiddush in shul. Yeah, but fascinating. Was it on a Friday? It was on a Shabbos. Yeah, so keeping to the rules. I saw a recent tshuva of Diane Simons just wrote something saying exactly the same thing. It's so important to keep to whatever the rules are. We've got to keep to it, and that's certainly the rules of the day. Yes, so quite right.
Norman, if it's a proper mitzvah, why don't we make a bracha when we eat on the 9th? Oh, is it just not a huchshe mitzvah? I mean, if you're going to have a sukkah, you need to build a sukkah. It's not a big. It's not a big deal. You can't have a sukkah without. You need a sukkah for sukkahs. You need arba minim.
No, you do make a bracha on your arba minim, and you make a bracha on the sukkah.
But so why don't we make a bracha on eating on the 9th? If it's a mitzvah saseh, which you're suggesting, why don't we make a Sheikh Shono on it?
Right, so you could say, according to this, because it is linked to the 10th, it's like almost like a hechsher mitzvah for the 10th.
In which case,
it's only a hechsher mitzvah for the ultimate, which is fasting. Yeah. Yeah. Also, you don't. I mean, what are you going to say then? It's not like a kazayas of matzah. Here we're saying you've got to be constantly eating, and you do find things, mitzvahs with einohem shiur, you don't find normally their brachas for it, because then what you're going to do, you're going to make a bracha every time you have something to eat, because it's not just one kazayis, like you're having a matzah on Seder night and you've done the mitzvah. You haven't ever finished that mitzvah until you're eating constantly to build up strength. So again, you'd be, I'm difficult to say how do you define that mitzvah? It's a constant mitzvah. But I think you're right.
I mean, it doesn't seem to have the strength of a mitzvah. So if you're saying Osek b'mitzvah, potem in a mitzvah, you wouldn't say I'll miss mincha because I'm eating.
No, but let me tell you what it says. If you can see the Gemara, the previous Gemara, turn back a page. Have a look 2 lines up, and I've got the word kol ha'oichel. You got the word kol?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a look. You can see next to there. You've got next to the word kol. You've got a little vav. The top.
Yeah.
Right-hand corner. That will take me up to this side of the Gemara in my Gemara, it's up on the left. I think you'd have the same. And if you've got little vav, can you see little vav on the top corner?
Yeah.
It says, look there in the Tur B'Shulchan Aruch Chaim Siman Tov Reish Daled Sif Aleph. Can you see right in the top left-hand corner? There's a memtes, because it's the 49th citation in this perek. And it's Vav, because it's the 6th one on this page. Can you see that? The Ein Mishpat B'nei Mitzvah. It tells me that this is actually referred to in Shulchan Aruch. and I've got the Shulchan Aruch in front of me here. And if you look, the very first halacha, Anthony, of Hilchos Yom Kippur, Tov Reish Dalet, 604, chapter 604, it says, Mitzvah lecho be'erev Yom Kippurim u'laharbos b'seuda. There's a mitzvah to eat and laharbos b'seuda. It's almost equivalent to like on Purim. You know, it's a mitzvah.
Does that mean mitzvah as in a mitzvah zaseh, or is it a? I mean, when it says mitzvah, it kind of can vary between.
It's
good
not
idea.
It's not a Taryag mitzvah.
Yeah, very good, very yeah. You'd have to say, particularly the way we've seen with the Rashi and the Rosh, it's not, I say Torah. In other words, it's a preparation. The Torah does not want a person on the 10th, not, you know, obviously fasting, and you're going to feel weak at the end, of course, with a headache and everything that comes with it, but have the strength. So it's a preparation. And you see the Mishnah Berurah there says, quoting exactly our Gemara, in other words, it's an equivalence to actual fasting.
And that's hyperbole, isn't it? Because it's not equivalent to fasting.
No, but the schar will be the same. That's the point. Yeah, we don't understand what it means for schar. In other words, the preparation for fasting in Yom Kippur, it's like you fasted, and by eating on that day, it's like fasting for 2 days.
Only if you have in mind that you're doing it in order to prepare.
Okay, now you're doing it. Now you've got another question here. Do you say mitzvah tzrichas kavona or not? Right. It may well be. It's very nice. It may well be if we pass the mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavona, that you can get everybody's performing this mitzvah. Wonderful.
It'll be the most performed mitzvah of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody getting their tick before Yom Kippur. But that's very interesting. Let me ask you another question, gentlemen. What would you say there for someone who's a choileh and the doctors have told him he's not allowed to fast? There again, you're going to have the same question.
He's got to eat on the 9th as well. If he's not allowed to fast, he's got to eat on both days.
Yeah, but is he quite right? The doctors have told him he's got to eat, quite right. So he's fasting on that. Is that a mitzvah for him to eat? On top of the doctors telling me he's got to eat, he's not actually, he's eating on the 10th. Again, you have the same thing. Is the mitzvah a mitzvah like it's on its own right, as we've said? Or are you linking it to the 10th? Well, he's not going to be fasting on the 10th anyway. So for him eating on the 9th, so again, you'd have that question whether or not is actually a mitzvah for him to eat. Of course, the doctors will be telling him to eat anyway. He's fasting, not going to be fasting on the 10th, as Anthony said. And very interesting halacha, yesh le'odom, there you are, lamayet bilimudoi be'erev Yom Kippurim. Reduce whatever time you're spending, kedei le'cho v'lishtos, in order to eat and drink and have the strength on Yom Kippur itself. So I say it's the very first. You've got all the halachos of Yom Kippur, and before you start off with that, and the Ramah says, "Osa lis anos bay." It's been forbidden to fast on that day of Yom Kippur. There you are. So interesting halacha there for you. I'll say that perhaps the easiest one, hopefully, particularly if you say mitzvah saying tzrichas kavona, then it's going to be a tick for everyone, we hope. But particularly, say, time to prepare and to ensure that the person is going to be strong enough on Yom Kippur itself. Beautiful, particularly that loshon of the Rosh. Back to our Gemara.
Hello.
And we now move on.
Can I ask a
back
question?
To Rosh Hashanah in Yonim, or
Hello?
our Mishnah. If you remember, we were talking about Yovel.
Hello.
Top of the page. Got it?
Malcolm's got a question for you.
Another question, please.
Sorry, can I ask a very quick one?
Yes.
It's a bit silly, but according to the verse, I mean, just to go back to this thing, there's nothing mentioned about eating. It's just about
absolutely.
Yeah. It's all inference that it's actually a good idea to eat in order to prepare for a fast. And if you have that in mind, this is what you've been discussing, so it's sort of linked.
Yes.
In that case, isn't it a mitzvah to eat at all? every day.
Yes, but here's a bit more. Here you're prepared. It's sometimes you're not very hungry sometimes, and and you're quite right. There's always a mitzvah to ensure the person's healthy. Yes, there is a halacha. Look after yourself. Nishmatim, people do talk about that. Look after yourself. See, be careful. Particularly nowadays, there's a very much a mitzvah to look after yourself. And if you've got to eat, everybody's got to eat. You've got to do so. Absolutely. Be well. There's a mitzvah to be well. Absolutely. There's a lot to be done in this world, and you've got to be well to be able to do it. But what we're saying is something more than that. Here, on top of the normal looking after yourself and caring for yourself, we're adding, because tomorrow is Yom Kippur, if you're on the 9th, there's a mitzvah. Don't be clever today and start saying, I'd like to build up into the atmosphere Yom Kippur, and I'm going to reduce my eating today, and Sukkot will be the time I'll be eating a lot, but not today. Says the Torah, no, I don't want that. I want a person to be strong for Yom Kippur. So on top of the normal looking after yourself, there's an additional mitzvah. You could perhaps classify it as a particular mitzvah when you're, as it's the only day as far as the Torah is concerned as fasting, go and eat. So it's on top of the normal looking after yourself. You're quite right. Make sure you do eat. But there are other occasions where a person may feel that they want to fast for whatever reason. Sometimes it could be for a particular Tishri or other reasons they want to fast. Don't take the 9th of Tishri as that day that you're going to fast. If you do want to have a fast for whatever reason, some people have fast for other reasons that they want to fast, but not on the 9th. That's what we're saying. It's a mitzvah to eat on the 9th. Yeah, outside the normal looking after yourself, but I mean it's on top of. Yes.
It's not Doraisa though. I mean, you said the Torah tells us. There's no pasuk.
Well, yeah, there are. That's what we're saying. That is what the pasuk is telling us. The Inisim Esnafshu Seichem is telling us to prepare yourself on the 9th. Yeah, well, the Gemara is learning this. It's may not be a tariag, but it's part of the mitzvah of fasting. On the 10th is this preparation on the 9th. And we're learning from this pasuk, yes, min Torah. So it's a mitzvah min Torah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. That's what we're saying. Absolutely. It's learned from this pasuk. Why does the pasuk say anything about the 9th? It should say the 10th is when you fast, not the 9th. It's telling me we want you to do something on the 9th. But the Torah doesn't say eat on the 9th because it wants you to be considered as if you're fasting another whole day. In other words, schar-wise, or you'd consider the mitzvah of that quality, that it's as if it's difficult to fast. So making it equivalent to fasting another day by eating. Amazing. But yes, that's what the pasuk is telling us. It's not midrabanan. It's this drasha from this pasuk. If you're following, as Rabbi Akiva would do, this view of Rabbi Chia bar Rab Midifti. So there's that pasuk. So we now move to Tes on the base. We're on top. We're back into Yovel. We've left Yovel for a bit, skirting around, and now we're back to Yovel. Tana Rabbanon. We'll make a start on this. Tana Rabbanon. Yovel he. Now, you may have the psukim, if you've got Torah Ora. Do you have Torah Ora on your sheets as well? Hopefully. Have you got Torah Ora on the bottom, giving you the full pasuk on your sheet?
Yes, we have.
Oh, good, excellent. Have a look. This is talking in Vayikra about the Yovel year. Yeah, Parshas Bahar. And remember, the main point was on the 10th, you will be blowing the shofar. I know we've moved across now from the 10th of Yom Kippur to the 10th of this 50th year, the Yovel year, the Jubilee year. B'Yom HaKippurim, Taviru shofar b'chol artzachem. Taviru means you should announce, although it says passing, it means the sound should be coming of the shofar. There's a particular blowing the shofar min haTorah on Yom Kippur of the Jubilee year. Carry on the pasuk. V'kidashtem, when you should sanctify es shnas hachamishim shana. You sang in which way? So we've got now the shofar being blown. there's something else. Ukrosem deror ba'oretz l'chol yoshveha. What does it mean, deror? Freedom. Freedom for what? All slaves are free. Yeah? Remember we had the idea of the slave that wants to actually have the, go beyond the 7 years, beyond the 6 years, Sheishon Talmud, Yetze Lachofshi. Here, even if the servant wants to stay on longer, but when it comes to the 50th year, they are free. Remember, we spoke about this before. Remember those 10 days, the initial 10 days of the Jubilee year, it's all on the house, as they say. No work to be done. And the owner is really lavishing plenty of food, having it, eat, drink, and merry, and then free, and he becomes now out of the jurisdiction of the previous owner. Fine, that's number one. Deror, the Gemara will look at that word deror from the word dira. Yeah, a person can live back where they live, wherever they want to live now. They're not under the jurisdiction of the master. That's next. Then the Pasuk goes on and says, Yovel he, it is the Jubilee year. Tihi Elochem. We seem to have mentioned that already. Another mention of it, okay. And there's something else that happens. V'shavtem ish el achuzosei. V'ish el mishpachtoi toshuvu. What does that mean? Land goes back. Remember, when a person is selling the family property, and it was all family property ultimately because the land of Eretz Yisrael divided up amongst the Shvatim, amongst the tribes. If you sold land, you could never sell a freehold. Okay, there was a difference about the area belonging to Levium and if it's in walled cities, but the standard situation was land you could sell leasehold. What would happen on the Yovel year? It would come back to the tribe of Reuven, the tribe of Shimon, back to Ish Achuzose, Ish El Mishpachto. It's not talking about the person, it talks about the land. And then there's something else that happens. Having had all of that, then what happens? There's the Yovel year. Remember, the Yovel year is like a Shemitah year. Lo Sizra'u, no sowing, no harvesting. The land is fallow. Remember, the 2 years, one after the other, so much so that the Torah has to give us particular bracha. Don't be worried that there'll be 2 years. Imagine, it's quite amazing to think of that don't worry, there will be a bumper crop. It's like a promise. There will be a bumper crop prior to the Shemitah and the Jubilee year, because 1 year following the other. So again, there are 3 rules, and then it falls into a Shemitah year. Again, Jubilee year, what are the 3 main areas, halachas, that you talk about? The shofar being blown, servants free, and land going back to the original owner of the property, the original shevet. Yeah?
A bit of an economic hit on 2 and 3.
Why do you say well, I bet everybody knew they're only buying it as leasehold. They know it's going back.
Right, but your ability to lease the property as you approach the Yovel is diminished because your term is diminished.
Yeah,
and your slaves go free.
Well, the slaves shouldn't have been there that long anyway. Normally, after 6 years, they meant to be. It's only this slave wanted to stay on. We tell him, "I'm sorry, you cannot go on beyond the Yovel year," and so he's had all these extra years as it is. A person is free. We want an individual to have that freedom to be able to carry out their tafkid, and we want land to be in particular areas. We want this achdus in the shvatim. We don't want land.
I'm sorry, I understand.
No, what you're saying is, at least, yeah. But what you could do is come back after Shemitah and, after the Yovel, and then make another 49-year, leasehold. So you're not prevented from doing that. All we're saying is it comes back and then you'll decide again. It may well be your neighbors. It may be the other Shvatim will be, if you are. And back to your case, Sam, very good. The person needs the money. Yeah, so he's only leasing it for X years. When Yovel, it will all come back. and he'd be next to all his maybe tribe of Reuven, for example. It may well be the rest of his neighbors next to him, Reuven. They'll say, look, I'm prepared to buy it from you. You're short of money. I'll buy it from you. It'll go back to you in 49 years. I'll take it. But the point is, everybody gets together. The Shvatim get together. And there were different ways, each Shevet with their own characteristics. Their Avodah was a different Avodah, very keen that they should stick to their particular path and meet up. I say, well, they will all be family, ultimately, and build up that relationship with the family once again. So yes, you're right. But a person, of course, may be losing out, but ultimately gaining as he goes on. So this is very interesting because it keeps saying Yovel he. It is Yovel. Have a look at the Gemara here. Yovel he. Afal pi shelo shomtu. Second line down of the Gemara. Daf tes on the base. Even though afal pi shelo toku. Yochel afapi shelo sholchu Talmud lo mahi divrei Rabbi Yehuda. What is this all about? Let's have a look at Rashi. Even though, so remember, there are three things taking place besides the fact that the year is a Shemitah year. You've got the Lashon Shemitah actually means loosen, shomot. You're losing control. And here's Shemitah, we're talking here about Shemitah regarding the land. You're losing control because it will go back. You'll have to loosen your hand. Let's have a look at Rashi. Yovel he, and we'll pick up here the view of Rabbi Yehuda, and then we'll find the view of Rabbi Yossi. Yovel he, top Rashi. Yovel he tihi elochem. Le'el minei kasiv. Earlier on, we've just seen the pasuk. Ba'avata shofar, you should blow the shofar. V'kidashtem, and sanctify. Eshnasa chamishim shana, the 50th year. Ukrosem deror, and call it freedom. That's freedom to live where you like. That's servants. V'hoda kasiv. Then after that it says, as we saw, yovel he. Again, I mean, we know that's exactly what we're talking about, the Jubilee year. Why does the Apostle again mention the Yovel he, Ti Elochem? It will be the Jubilee. Yeah. Ukra Yiserahu. Those words, as we find Kara, Apostle words are Yisera mean extra. L'drasha is a drasha. V'hochi tidrashenu. And so you should explain it. Yovel he lochem mikol makom. It will be a Yovel. I know there are these three areas you're meant to look at on Yovel. And then you've also got the fact that it's a Shemitah, the land should be fallow. Don't think that one without the other can happen. What do I mean by that? I might have thought, if you see the Psukim, it mentions those three things, and then it says, the land then will be fallow, left fallow. I might have thought that the Shemitah aspect will only apply if you've actually performed those other three mitzvahs. That's what I might have thought. Let's have a look at Rashi here. V'hochi tidrashenu, fourth line down. Yovel lochem mikol makom. It will be a yovel for you, whether you like it or not. Afilu lo nasa bo devarim halolu. It's a jubilee year, and the land will have to be fallow, even if you did not perform those three extra mitzvahs for the jubilee. Afilu lo nasa bo devarim halolu. Havoras shofar, one. V'loshuv el achuzah. And going back the land, going back to your original state, your original achuzah, you're taking possession. Dahainu shemitas karkois. Let's not get confused here. We're using the same word, shmitas karkois, means loosening your hand of control on that land, because it will go back to the original owner. Shekonu ze mizeh. This person acquired it from someone else. Dichsiva bosahaikra, that comes later when it says v'shavtem ish el achuzosai. So again, what are the three mitzvahs mentioned? Number one, the shofar. Number two, Doror means people being free. That's servants. Then it says, Yovel he, and then it mentions land goes back to its original owner. Right? Says Rabbi Yehuda, Afilu no nasa both. I'm going back to Rashi again. Havora shofar, even if the shofar was not blown, first narrow line of Rashi, v'loshu ve'lachuza, or the land had not gone back, you didn't return the land, you refused to let him in. The Hainu Shmitas Kakois, Shekonuzem Ized, Chsiv Bosahai, which is mentioned later on, V'shavtem Ishelachus, Afal Pikein, even so, says Rashi, Shem HaYovel Olov, the name, that's what it says, Yovel. It's going to be a Yovel year, and you'll have to not plow, harvest the ground. It will be Osa Bizria, Rashi is very clear, Osa Bizria Ubetzira Katsira, which is sowing, or Betzira, it's a part of the harvesting, whether you're talking about grapes or Katsira, if you're harvesting the corn, the grain, K'dichsiv Lo Sizra'u. So it's very interesting. I might have thought, because you've got those three things mentioned first, and then the fact that you're not allowed to harvest and cultivate the land, that one depends on the other. If you fulfill the first three, then the land will have this kedusha. Says Rabbi Yehuda, two of them are crucial. Or perhaps not crucial, I mean, even though you didn't give the land back, or you didn't blow the shofar, it will always be a Shemitah year. That's from that extra word of Yovel. Have a look now, the third line of the Gemara. I might have thought, even if you didn't send away these servants, Talmud lo mahi. That is absolutely crucial. If you do not send away the servants, this is not a proper Jubilee year. Yeah, have a look at Rashi. Yochal afal pishalo shochlu avodim. Yeah, hey Yovel, it will be this Yovel year. Talmud loima. That's why I've got the word he. Interesting. So I've got two extra words: Yovel, unnecessary, and Yovel he. Yovel means it's a Yovel whether you like it or not. He says it's, but part of this, one of these three is crucial. Have a look at Rashi. Talmud lo mehi. Im osiso devorim halolu he Yovel. The he is trying to tell you it. If you've done these rules, it will be a Yovel. Otherwise, it's not a Yovel year. The imlav einu Yovel. Ulakame mafarish. Later on, the Gemara will explain the Yovel my chozi the toli b'kriyas teror. Why are you saying the crucial one is that the servants must be free? You've got there are three rules that are coming into play here. Let's just have a look at the next Gemara and then we'll stop. So I hope that's clear. There are three halachas that come into play in a Yovel year. The Gemara says, it says the word Yovel to say it's going to be a Yovel whether or not you did those, but they've got the he to say one of them is crucial. That's what, as Rashi says, the word he. If you've done this, then it's a Yovel year. Which is the one which is crucial? We're saying the one of sending the servants free. Why that one? We'll have to wait for next week. Have a look at one more line here of the Gemara, fourth line down. Rabbi Yossi says no. Yovel, I agree with you, Rabbi Yehuda. Yovel, the word Yovel is telling me it's going to be Yovel anyway. He is telling me one of them is crucial, but I disagree with you. Which is the crucial one of the three? Afal pishalo shomtu. Even though lo shomtu means you didn't loosen your grip on the land. Even if you didn't send away the avodim, it's still a Yovel year. Yochel, I might have thought, toku, if you didn't blow the shofar? No. Talmud lo mehi. Okay, so from there, you can see the machlokas, and the next line, the Gemara says, how do you know which one is the crucial one here? Do you understand? So we've got 3 rules that apply to Yovel. Yovel tells me that whether you do those rules or not, it's going to be a Yovel year. But the word he tells me it's got to be it. One of those 3 that we're doing there it's an it. Without it, it will not be a Yovel year. So there's a machlokas. We haven't explained yet why, but this is building up for next week. One of them, according to Rabbi Yehuda, what is the crucial one? Afar pishalo sholchu, says Rabbi Yehuda, no. Sending away the servants is crucial. If you don't send away the servants, this will not have the kedusha of a Shemitah year. Amazing. Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's not the sending away the servants back home, the Jubilee. You know what's crucial? Blowing that shofar. That welcomes in that Shemitah year, and without it, it will not just a Shemitah, it welcomes the Jubilee year. Without it, it will not be a Jubilee year. So that's a machlokas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi, we will have to have a look and see where do they learn this from? Why should it do? We've seen now 1 out of the 3. We don't know which one and why the machlokas comes through. In fact, there's one other view we'll see hopefully next time, but more of that next week as we study and look at this idea of the Yovel, beautiful idea of the Yovel, and which ones are crucial here. And when we said who has to send the servants away, everybody who's got servants. Do you go according to the majority? That's something we'll have to look at. And with that, gentlemen, I wish you well.
Charles has got a question.
Charles.
Don't we learn from the Tanakh that in fact the Yovel was not properly observed, and that was one of the reasons for the exile?
Hold on, if I can hear you. Yes, not just Yovel, it was Shemitah itself.
Okay, Kol v'chomer.
Yes, Shemitah, absolutely. It's a tough one. Leaving the land fallow and not cultivating is very tough. And you're quite right. We find those psukim, those 70 years. It's interesting how they par. Rashi quotes it from quoting other sources, Gemara, the 70 years of exile, and there were 70 years of Shemitah which they didn't keep, including the Yovel as well. So quite right. So it is a very important, but you can understand how difficult it is. We even nowadays have a cousin actually who's got a huge paradise, an orchard of estrogim. We know the price of estrogim. It's wonderful, wonderful income for it. Not himself. He's actually at various institutions where they're utilizing that money from the estrogim. So he said it was worth doing just on that 1 year of Shemitah where he has up. There are various ways, there are various ways you could perhaps get round it today, but no, he has up where it says Shemitah on the Shemitah year. Of course, next year actually is Shemitah year. This year is the 6th year, and he has out a sign. The doors are open, the gates are open, and it says Reshus Lakol. And everybody can come help themselves. He loses a lot of money on that year, but he makes it up elsewhere. Never actually lost out from it. But there is this mitzvah of the Shemitah, leaving the ground fallow, available for everybody to show, as if we don't need a reminder, written quite recently, we ain't in control. The idea is we do not, yes, we may own certain things, but really it's not up to us. We are not in control. We've certainly had that message coming through to us. We're not controlling anything. And yesterday in Jerusalem, there was rain. The forecasters got it completely wrong. It was blue skies, and suddenly in Yerushalayim, there was a cloud and there was a downpour. Don't know if anybody's got any family in Jerusalem. There was a downpour, amazing, and the forecasters said they lost it. All their modeling did not expect a cloud it was a massive rainfall in Jerusalem. We're not in control here. We've got no idea what we're doing, as we've seen throughout. And you're quite right, Charles. Shemitah is another occasion where we say we give everybody a chance to realize we're not actually owning things. We do have certain things that we have, and that we've got to utilize to the best of our ability. And with that, gentlemen, wish you well. I can see Michael with us as well.
But
good to see you.
Isn't it surprising?
Thank you. Charles, yes.
Surprising that here the Gemara talking about the Yovel doesn't mention the fact, which is, as you
I can't hear you very well. Doesn't mention?
It doesn't mention the fact that people failed to observe the Shemitah.
Well, according to the art scrolls here, no, she just said it happened twice. It occurred during the reign of Joachim, and during that they weren't shomet, that they weren't, that even people did not abandon their fields to the ancestral owners. The Rash, Mishantz, and Rivet he quotes says it happened twice. The reign of the wicked Joachim, king of Judah.
Wait, are you talking about Yovel or Shemitah?
Well, I suppose it's
No. Shemitah. Shemitah there was 70 occasions they didn't keep the Shemitah.
Yes, sorry, my mistake.
But you're quite right. In answer to your question, Charles, this is not the Gemara's dealing with that point. It's a very valid point. At the moment, we're just trying to build up what is Yovel all about. Whether people are keeping or not, very important, but that's not what this Gemara is dealing with. This Gemara, elsewhere you'd find that explained in detail, yes. Our Gemara is just going through what are the rules about Yovel. That's what we're studying. So that will come in due course, but that's not for our Gemara.
Norman, because
yes,
there are only two possibilities there, but nobody has the third possibility.
Very good, very good. I was hoping somebody would ask that question. Excellent. Good for next week. Yes, we look at that as well. Hey, well done. Yeah, you're quite right. You're saying one of them's crucial. I mean, there are three. We've only got two here.
Okay.
Good. Very good question indeed. Yes.
I'll be back next.
Okay, just to make sure you come, you see. Very good indeed. For our Sephardi brethren, we have Sephardim here. Certainly we do. Today with the big yortzeit of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. The great Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, Moron. I'm sure Sammy knows all about that. Sam also. It's fun. No. The great Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Anyway, just mention it in passing. Great man in every possible way.
The Havdil is also the birthday of Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Of who?
Of the Prime Minister.
Oh, right. Sorry. Oh, no, very good. I didn't know today's his birthday, is it? Well, he should be well. Indeed. Hatzlacha to everybody. So anyway, with that, gentlemen, we'll leave you now at 9:10. So I wish you well. Have a very good week.
Thanks, Phil.
And I say, certainly keep well and only besorot tovot.
Amen. Shkoyach.
Anybody?
Bye, David.
Bye.
Bye, Charles.
Bye, everybody.